Welcome to DeFi by Design, where we talk all things blockchain and cryptocurrency while striving to educate, empower, and enrich.
What's up, guys? Real quick break here to tell you about the DeFi by Design podcast sponsor, 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵. 𝗵𝗶𝗴 is a non-custodial, trustless, decentralized money market protocol which is leading the DeFi charge. We know 𝗵𝗶𝗴 as the workhorse of DeFi with their A tokens, allowing you to earn interest on about 10 or 20 DeFi tokens by using app.𝗵𝗶𝗴.com. Again, that's app.𝗵𝗶𝗴.com or just 𝗵𝗶𝗴.com, and then you can get redirected to the protocol. Basically, what you can do on 𝗵𝗶𝗴 is you can earn interest by putting your assets into the protocol as a supplier, right, as a lender, and then you can also borrow against your assets using them as collateral to long or short tokens, earning interest when you do the borrowing as well. So you can actually earn interest by supplying and borrowing assets on 𝗵𝗶𝗴. So check out 𝗵𝗶𝗴.com, give it a try, and see what it's all about. We use it all the time. And yeah, that is our DeFi by Design podcast sponsor, 𝗵𝗶𝗴. Thank you very much, guys, and let's get right back to it.
Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of the DeFi by Design podcast. Today, very excited. We have a longtime friend of mine, Antonio Gomes. He is one of the first entrances into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies that I was familiar with back in my freshman year of college. I'll let him introduce himself and kind of what he's up to now in the software space, the Bitcoin space, the cryptocurrency space. Take it away, Antonio.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Robbie. So a little brief intro about me. I started and co-founded the Gator Blockchain Club back in 2016. And super cool at the time was just a group of like nerds eating some pizza, like all the way like down on the hallway. And we're just like talking about this new digital currency that nobody really understood anything about it. And they were just using it at the Silk Road. And just back in 2016, things were still very early stage. There was like all the infrastructure, like this digital infrastructure that was created was not as accessible as today. And we also didn't have the bull run that happened later that year. So we had no idea of what we're getting ourselves into when we started in those early days. I believe it was October 2016 or September. So it was pretty cool. But we had this vision that we were doing something that could change the world. Because at the time when I started the club, I had a problem that Bitcoin was a solution. I was a student at University of Florida, and I was trying to receive some money from abroad from my family for like expenses. You know, when you're in college, you're just a broke student, and I was trying to transfer money, but PayPal would take 15 days throughout a European bank account. And if you just use your Visa card throughout the Visa network and just withdraw money on an ATM out in Gainesville, it'll charge you like I think $15 in fees. So that was a huge problem, and I was just trying to find another solution. And there's Western Union, which is very popular too, but they charge a lot of fees and it's super slow. So at the time we had Bitcoin, Ripple, and a couple other currencies, and Bitcoin sort of became a way to go. Like it was interesting because I could do those transactions, and it was simple, easy, and I actually ended up finding that Ripple was the fastest one to do those like across the ocean transactions. Was super fast and got set on their blockchain, which makes complete sense because they're centralized database in a sense that just calls them a cryptocurrency. But it was a great experience because it was at the beginning of everything, and Bitcoin solved the real world problem for me. And after what happened in 2017 was the space and a lot of things changed. People just start investing, but in those early days, it was just not about investing. To me, it was like a sort of necessity, and you solved a real life problem. And that led me to become founder with a couple of friends in later 2017 of a consulting firm for cryptocurrencies called Bittips. We have a website, bittips.net, a YouTube channel. I suggest you guys to subscribe. We just posted some cool videos from Lebanon, an interview that we got with a Lebanese national. We also give out shirts. We're in a partnership with Bitcoin.com. But we founded this company, and our main purpose was to educate the masses, educate the people. Because at the University of Florida, and Robbie can attest this, we did a conference and we wanted to educate students. We wanted people to learn about this technology that was so disruptive and can change the world. So that's what happened, and how everything just got into where we are today. I still have my consulting firm Bittips and still do those YouTube videos, and I also work in software sales at Oracle in Texas. So it's been quite a ride, but it's just amazing to see how technology is so transformative and can disrupt the entire world. And yeah, I pass the word to you, Robbie.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's really interesting just to see how far it's come. Not only as a technology, because as a technology, when you're looking at the code and the functionality of what Bitcoin can do, in that sense, it really hasn't changed too much in the last few years. Scalability, it gets a little bit more scalable. Maybe fees, come down a little bit as more nodes are on the network. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it's more the idea of what Bitcoin represents, that's really evolved, and it's almost like people are finding new problems that are popping up, and they're using Bitcoin as the solution when that might have not even been apparent or been the case before. So I think that's really cool, as not even that the technology is moving at such a fast pace, but people are applying the technology in so many different areas now, and it's solving so many more problems. One of the things that Antonio mentioned is reparations and sending money across borders. But now people are using it as an investment, and we've seen MicroStrategy, which is a publicly traded company with I believe a few $1 billion in assets under management. They made an investment of 500 million into Bitcoin, and now just today, I believe Square Cash, yeah, they invested $50 million in their own bankroll. So I think that's really cool. Is now it is becoming not only a form of money transfer that's more of a retail need, but it's becoming a greater form of investment to these major people that trade money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just so interesting to see how things sort of shifted, but also that Bitcoin is just this, yes, so many purposes, and there is this quazillion of applications coming out of it. Like what I really love to see was when I met people from Venezuela down in South Florida at the blockchain center and even in meetings, and they'll be like, oh, this is the only way I can send money abroad to my family because there is censorship there. Like people can't survive in these places. There's capital controls. There's massive inflations. But what is interesting to see is so Bitcoin and crypto is applicable in these places where there is hyperinflation and capital controls, but is also applicable in the first world, like the U.S., where people do not have that problem, but they also are interested in investing or using DeFi as a form of collateral to like for example, fight the current issue that we have that the Federal Reserve stipulated that like a, like savings accounts across the United States are at a rate of 0.30% interest. And it's cool how the FI comes up and completely changes this. I mean, if you're familiar with the app Abra, which is an amazing app, they offer you 4% interest in Bitcoin if you hold it there, or Ethereum, or even USDT. So that's super cool to see these things coming out.
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to see applications, and I'd like to know your thoughts on kind of where you see Bitcoin going, what more problems you think it might solve. We talked a little bit before we started recording when we first hopped on about kind of the hostility that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have towards federal governments, and I think that's almost because the federal government and the Federal Reserve particularly is almost like a direct competitor of Bitcoin. So, in the way that the Federal Reserve has some monetary policy, Bitcoin has an open source monetary policy, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, whether it's through state stable coins or an adoption of Bitcoin as some sort of reserve currency. Where do you kind of see that headed as far as maybe governments are going to start to warm up to the idea, especially if they're kind of forced into it by need. But do you see it more as like a a bridge between the two. I know a lot of crypto people tend to think of um, overthrowing the banks and almost like a more revolutionary type of aspect. But do you see it being more of like a revolution or um, like something where those two types of philosophies are able to work together?
Yeah, so a lot of people see it as a revolution, and the government imposed certain laws and restrictions that a lot of early adopters, even back in 2013, thought that was just going to hinder the space and stop innovation. But what happens is that both have to coexist. There is no there is no possibility because you have Bitcoin coming out with as an open source technology that anyone can just look up the code and fork it and just create their own currency. And we are living in an age, in a digital age, where everyone has a computer at home, and we sort of code became a sort of law. So what happened was Bitcoin just became this disruptor that made a lot of government officials look at it and see, whoa, there is a problem. People have adopted this, and this asset has become 10,000 times more valuable than a dollar, which is trading right now at almost $11,000. And there's a problem here. Of course, I understand the point of the perspective from the government and society, and we have a society bound by legal and social contracts, and having something like having value is just going through no middleman and having no supervision can be an issue because tax evasion, money laundering, and so on. And I definitely understand that needs to be rules in place, and I understand that the government needs to take action on that. And I think, and we've seen this happening across the world, is a lot of governments are saying, okay, Bitcoin exists, and actually North Korea has used it to like fund some of their accounts due to sanctions, but they have seen that this exists and this can be successful. And if, in China is where I experienced this was in China you use WeChat, Alipay, so on, and the cash is all digital. Like you have a WeChat account and you hold your funds there, and the Chinese government looks at the Bitcoin and Ethereum codes and they think we can create our digital currency that we control the supply and amount, and we can control how much is in each wallet and so on. And this kind of looks scary in a sense because the technology behind Bitcoin in the 80s and 90s was considered illegal to export out of the United States, and we're talking about encryption. The SHA-256 method was considering ammunition if you were to export it out of the US. So what is happening now is you have nation states taking these codes and thinking about applying on real world applications and just going out to society. And that's sort of what we've seen with COVID too, is in a lot of countries, people stop using cash because they're just afraid of transmitting through the money and everything is electronically transmitted. So the Federal Reserve, I mean, we had this news a couple months ago. They're thinking about creating their own digital currency, which is fine. The US dollar being a digital currency will be very useful, but it raises a lot of privacy concerns. And for our listeners, a lot of people don't understand this. Bitcoin is not private at all. We can see where you made the transaction, what was the IP address. Every time you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, we know that was associated with your name and so on. Like you need and you should comply with the regulation in your jurisdiction. And it's important to know this. So in the future, Bitcoin and what Blockstream has done, which is this main company where all the devs are mainly from that work on Bitcoin, they have and they have backed Bitcoin as a form of value, this asset that replaces gold but is digital gold. And where I see things going is just Bitcoin becomes this digital online gold that holds value and that the entire world can access to it. And when I mean the entire world, is literally the entire world. We right now have satellites that Blockstream launched, and you can literally get those connections with just an antenna. You can buy out there and connect to a full node, and that full node lets you transact within the chain. And that's pretty important because anywhere you are, you can store your funds and have them safe if you want to run from government inflation. And a good example of something that's happening now is in Turkmenistan. The SWIFT network was shut down by the government. So it means that anyone in the country cannot transfer any funds to the outside. Like you can't use this main network. The SWIFT is a network operated by the US, but the government over there has the power to shut it down. So all the funds remain there. So Bitcoin becomes this global store of value. And I see just governments using this technology behind it since it's open source to create probably their own national currencies. I mean, think about 2050 or 2070. It will probably no longer be using cash. Cash will be just too and tweak or outdated. So it's interesting to see where things are shifting, where you have Bitcoin being the backbone of this disruption, this technological finance disruption in the last thousand, like I think 5,000 years since banks were sort of created, and you have the Ethereums and Chainlink and other ones that bring different purposes and add different value to society, like the 𝗵 coming out of all these ERC20 tokens, which surprises me how the Ethereum chain can handle all this. And fees were going up.
Yeah. I mean, fees were definitely going up, and that was a real problem for some people that were trying to get into the DeFi game. They were just simply priced out because the gas fees were so high. If you wanted to make a transaction and earn some sort of yield, right, that it costs a large portion of your whole stack to just make that transaction if you were only trading with a small amount of money. So I think a lot of people were priced out of this DeFi run, and it'll be interesting, if these types of APYs come back anytime soon. If that happens at the same time that fees are kind of trending down, that could be a really powerful merge between those two pieces of DeFi. So I think there is certainly a new wave of people that are open to adopting decentralized finance, and it was just a matter of being priced out of the market, which we kind of saw back, I believe it was in 2017. It wasn't exactly the same. People weren't priced out of the market, but what happened was in 2017, Bitcoin was running up so quickly that Coinbase, Bittrex, Poloniex, they were all cutting off these accounts, and they weren't letting newcomers create accounts. And and when that happened, people, they got FOMO, they got fear of missing out, and they just wanted to get some. They just needed their hands on Bitcoin. So I think that same sentiment is almost paralleled in the type of cycles or market cycles that we're seeing now, where people were priced out because of fees this time, not so much because of the KYC requirements that a lot of these other exchanges had.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention more on the stablecoin side and possible implications we have for the future. We are kind of speculating on what we're kind of expecting to see from the cryptocurrency world, but staying away from prices, I think cryptocurrencies do solve all of these issues. And with decentralized finance and some more applications that are getting built, as we speak, it really is about bringing the world economy online. And I think that's an important point, because when things are online, they normally can move much faster, much more efficiently. That's always going to come with some privacy and structural components that need to be worked through. But as the economy kind of comes online and becomes faster, I think that opens up a lot more value propositions, going into the industries like insurance and into credit, and how those types of industries can get represented on the blockchain, so that more people can access them. The worldwide economy would certainly be stronger if everyone had the ability to interact with each other. And I think that's what's really important, or at least what I really like about Bitcoin and the concept of cryptocurrencies, is the peer-to-peer and the open source nature of it.
Absolutely. And that's also something Bitcoin Core has been focusing on. Is Bitcoin is decentralized, yes, but a great stake is in China because a lot of miners are there, and they've been focusing on becoming the store of value, and also becoming a more decentralized network, the pure peer-to-peer network that everyone owns a piece of it, and that's so fundamental to create that strong backbone. And what you mentioned about bringing everyone in is super important. And we saw a little of that in 2017 with the ICO mania. The ICO was the fact that me and you, we cannot invest in companies right now that are on pre-IPOs unless we are accredited investor and we have like $200,000 a year and we have a certain amount of dollars in assets. Like I believe it's $1 million on assets. And a lot of people felt left out, and ICOs are like, hey, anyone can join this. But the problem we saw was just a lot of scams, and a lot of people got burned down. Like we saw BitConnect, one of the biggest scams ever, and we also saw, I think, was OKCoin, which the founder was arrested in the LA airport, and they had like this huge, massive event. And it is interesting, and the moral of the story is, with great powers comes great responsibilities. And the situation we have is we have this completely disruptive technology that sees no boundaries, and we're trying to have worldwide adoption, which is great, but people definitely need to be educated. That's why I created Bittips, to educate the masses, to let them know. We did a video about cryptocurrency in Africa, and in Africa, the situation is very tough. Like we're in Kenya, you have M-Pesa where you can transact with a SMS connected to your bank account because people have no internet there. And for example, if you go down south to Tanzania, you can only open a bank account if your cousin or uncle works at the bank and he lets you do that. And we faced a lot of people telling real world situations where they would, oh, they would get paid and then they'll be robbed on the way back home. So that's out there. But that's a problem that the crypto and the DeFi is more in the side of, okay, you have this capital, you can allocate it here and you gain interest. So that's the DeFi is tapping into that. And what I feel that we're doing now is in the first world countries, we're establishing and creating the highways and the backbone and infrastructure. And once those countries come online, things will be revolutionary. And what is interesting is you see Elon Musk with SpaceLink is launching satellites, and these satellites are going to provide internet to all over the planet. And we're talking about gigabit speeds, 1,000 megabytes per second, which you can have that on rural Africa or in the boat in Pacifico with a $200 satellite dish. So will this will dramatically impact the world. I mean, right now we have cryptos. There's about what 7,000 cryptocurrencies. A lot of them do not have a purpose at all. And I advocate listeners in this podcast before they invest, do your due diligence research and know what you're buying on. And also you have DeFi, storage token, derivatives, and it's an entire world being built up in our age, and it's super exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and there's so many exciting possibilities that can come out of some of these more remote countries, especially in Africa. I know Square Cash is working on some opportunities in Bitcoin and blockchain as well in Africa, and I'm excited. It might be the internet or satellites that broadcast much faster speed, or maybe it's the Bitcoin network, but the fact that the world is becoming much more interconnected, I think is a net positive for the entire world. Whether it's social value or economic value, the fact that people in America can now communicate and transact with people in Africa or in Asia. That's something that's completely new, and it's leading to all these new types of solutions for problems that have existed for a long time. Sending money overseas. As people become more connected, it's going to allow us to branch out even farther and and kind of take on some problems that people might not have even considered were possible before. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I see it this as a sort of freedom of speech because when you when you transact value and we're able to send value throughout the internet, it's freedom of speech because when you pay for something, you're telling another individual that you want this, and there's no better way to express yourself than with value, with a numerical value that that person believes that has a value to. So it's truly becoming a global economy, and will let people from other countries transact with people from completely different country. And we sort of have that right now with PayPal and websites like Upwork and Fiverr, but there is so many middlemen on the equation. And the problem with the middlemen is they take fees and they hinder development. And the music industry is extremely affected by that. Big labels take all the big commissions, and it's really hard to have artists listen to. A good example of this is Audios. It's an interesting token. If you guys have time, just check it out. That tries to solve this problem, the middleman issue, where artists get paid 3 cents per play on Spotify or Apple Music, and trying to just bring the entire world online, but also out of poverty. I mean, the World Bank just sent a report that more, I think a billion people are in poverty this year due to COVID. So it's really a concerning issue, and this space has the potential to disrupt that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean there's so many projects. I mentioned insurance and kind of like credit scores and decentralized credit scores. That's really what I'm most excited about, because I think if people have the ability overseas, in Africa, maybe in Tanzania, you mentioned there's not an opportunity to even open a bank account. The Bitcoin and DeFi network isn't there yet, where they can offer like decentralized loans. That's certainly possible, but I don't think the infrastructure is there quite yet. And I'm talking under collateralized loans where, maybe someone wants to start a business or buy a house in Tanzania, but you need a loan, or you need some source of capital that you're able to pay back over time. And that's what I think Bitcoin is enabling. And not only, well, excuse me, maybe DeFi is enabling that to even a greater extent. And what you mentioned about micropayments for the audio industry, I think is just as important. So as people are making money, but also borrowing money at the same time, there's going to be a much more fluid exchange between people. And I think that's really important, just because people are going to continuously have new ideas and have new problems that they need to be solving. And it's a matter of getting in contact with the right people to solve those issues. No one wants to reinvent the wheel or spend time doing something that has already happened and already invented. But if we can kind of branch those technologies into some of the lesser developed areas, not only is that going to help those lesser developed areas, but it's also going to just help the world overall, and everyone's going to become more connected. So I think that's really important for developers and engineers, in lesser developed countries, and then maybe in more first world countries where everything is pretty much developed and things are built up. There's other problems to solve, and blockchain solves those as well. So that's one of my favorite parts as well, is the composability. Is not, Bitcoin is open source, it's peer to peer, and it doesn't care who you are or where you come from. You can use it to solve problems all around the world. And as we have more problems that, there's more people on the earth now than there probably was at any other time. So that's going to come with a whole new set of issues that we've never really faced before. Climate change, certainly. The pandemic with Corona is another important one. And, we've seen, mass pandemics before, but I think this is just going to continuously happen, where there's new problems that need to get solved, and we need the brain power from all across the world in order to solve them. So I'm really excited that Bitcoin is able to solve some of those issues and just bring people together when it comes to economic freedom and freedom of speech, like you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And just not to be like broadly talking, and you mentioned like um, climate change. And a good example we had in our conference at the University of Florida was we had a couple of insurance companies and someone that worked at a financial company saying, hey, with Ethereum, we can program smart contracts to, there is a hurricane in Florida. All the crops are flooded. So the smart contract will know when the hurricane will happen, will know all the coordinates for the crops got flooded. And that smart contract will be programmed in a manner that automatically disperses the funds to that farmer. So here is a real world application to how this technology can really change. And it removes the middleman completely, and it's fast right there when you need it. So
Yeah. I'm participating in a hackathon right now, so I kind of get to see this like firsthand. It's the ETH Online hackathon, um, and I have I have a couple teammates from different countries, and there was a session today actually where it was almost like an idea validation or an idea brainstorm, and that was one of the ideas that was brought up is using smart contracts to have a better sense of crops and how they can be produced and how they can be grown with a better success rate. And part of this is bringing technology to places where the process hasn't changed in decades, if not centuries. I mean, farmers in remote areas in America, but also China, India, Africa, they've been doing the same process over and over again. It works, but it certainly can be improved. It's just a matter of educating, empowering, informing, just like the missions of our club.
yeah, educate the masses, and it's just amazing to see how transformative it is, this technology, and seeing the potential that holds the future. And when I look back, and I read a lot of books about history of finance, how banks were created, and so, and I look back, and most banks in Europe were created around the 1800s. We had the first banking industry being established, and the reason why a bank was created was because people had the need to take out loans for investing, or for, like, let's say you're an entrepreneur, you wanna buy a farm so you can raise your crops and sell them on the local market. So that's how banks started at the time, and there was an extremely high demand for those services. And the first bank that made a great profit was by loaning out money and charging interest, even back in the Roman time with the 𝗵𝗵𝗴𝗵𝗵 family. So that's what we're going to start seeing. Is we have this entire continent, Africa, that's on the dark, South America, Central America, and even in the United States, most people have access to a 12 megabyte connection, or regions in the United States have no internet at all. Is the world is waking up and is getting on board. And something that's very important to mention is after COVID, not only corporate America is changed forever because people are working from home, and the entire corporate workforce proved that it's possible. We can do this. We can work from home, and everything is going to change and shift to the online world. And I can see the next 20 years being fiber optic connections all over, and the access to the internet being something taken much more seriously by governments all across the world than it was until today. Because now we saw the potential and where the internet can take us. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, we're in the very beginning. And a lot of people think, oh, it's too late to jump into Bitcoin or crypto. It's already 10K. No, it's not really about the price in first place, but second, there's so much opportunity and so much that can change. You just got
Yeah.
to understand and learn about this technology, not just invest just to get crazy rich. Because it is true, it happened to some people that invested just for fun and they got a lot of funds out of it. But that's just one in a million sort of case. There is way more that you can learn from this industry. And we teach this to students there. We had students from Venezuela and a lot of countries that they're like, whoa, I can actually help my family with this, or this can actually change my life. So there's a lot of interesting cases.
Yeah, everyone's gonna fit in a little bit of a different way, but um, if you're too distracted by the price, then like you said, it's $10,000. I already missed out. It's not gonna go up from here. You're actually missing out on all these other opportunities that you could use the technology to solve other problems and maybe help someone else. Um,
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say, I think it's amazing this technology. We can literally, and I urge your listeners to like download a Bitcoin wallet. Like for example, Bitcoin.com wallet is super easy to use. Just get like 2 cents or 3 cents of worth of Bitcoin, and try to send it to another person. Actually, Bitcoin Cash works better for that because it doesn't have no fees at all. And just send it to another person across the world. Just see how easy it is and revolutionary it is. This technology, like if you want to send money to a person across the globe or to a business to buy some shoes or whatever, it's extremely hard. It takes 15 days to get there. So it is very interesting what you can do it.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, but I have one more question, or a couple more. Out of kind of the entire crypto sphere that you see right now, what is your favorite one or two projects? Maybe not, your favorite coins, not so much that they're going to go up in price, but is there anything that sticks out to you like, oh, that is really solving an important problem, and I'm excited to kind of see how that can evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting on the cryptocurrencies section, obviously Bitcoin, the store of value, where you should all your savings and even like hold it on Abra and just save that money so you can get 4% return, which is huge. And then you have Ethereum, has so much potential from owning digital fungible tokens on the central lands to programmable smart contracts. Very interesting project. Another interesting one, I would say USDD, because this allows to send out money and transact with money that's back to dollar one by one. It's funny because I look at it and USDD is still number three on the list from CoinMarketCap. And if you remember in 2017, USDD was always saying, oh, they're based in Puerto Rico. They are just a scam. They're going to collapse. But he actually not. And it was just the noise at the time, all the news. And they've been doing well. And they've been doing what was they were designed for. And another one I would say is Bitcoin Cash. It's the fundamental purpose is the peer-to-peer money to send out money, and if you want to send out cash or use it for micropayments to purchase a coffee or whatever you think. But you also have Litecoin for that works and solves that. Another one that I really like is Monero. Monero is digital cash. And when you say digital cash is you go to an ATM, you withdraw your US dollars or euros, whatever, and you have it in cash form. That's anonymous. You pay anyone or you deposit it into another account. They're not going to know where that money came from or whatever you want to use that money from. It's your privacy. It's a fundamental right that you have to spend your money in whatever you want. And it's interesting in the United States, you have a lot of dispensaries in Colorado and California opening up, and they're left out because they can't use money. They can't use any.
It's tough to get a banking license, right? If you're a dispensary, if you're in the marijuana industry.
Yeah, so it's interesting how you have this entire industry being left out from the banking sector, like strip clubs and what dispensaries and so on. But at the end of the day, this is all people that work there and they create jobs, and they should also pay taxes because they're in the United States and we all pay taxes at the end of the day. So, but these are industries that just use cash every day, and that's pretty odd in a sense. And I don't know how that problem is going to be fixed. But Monero is interesting because it's a cash is literally cash because the transactions are completely anonymous. You cannot look up on the blockchain and see what is going on the transactions.
And what do you think about the U.S. or the IRS offering the bounty to kind of solve Monero's anonymity?
Well, it makes a total sense because Monero has been used by North Korea and other competitors and state actors that are a threat to the government of the United States, and they're a threat to domestic peace. So I totally understand what the government is doing, and they also promote tax evasion. So I really think they're doing what is the right thing on their side, and they're doing their job. And I was actually pretty surprised that they're offering 600K because that means that the protocol is pretty secure, that works really well. And I was like, whoa, this is like direct war.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if they actually can crack it because it's encryption. Like for more guns that a government or individual can point at a protocol, you cannot crack a mathematical encryption algorithm. And it's interesting how the government is doing that because apparently, is that possible? Uh, and that's something we actually addressed on our channel with a Monero developer. Not the tax issue, but we addressed it with quantum computing. If a quantum computer could crack SHA-256 encryption or the algorithm behind Monero or Bitcoin, and that because that's been something of concern in this space. Because if you crack this algorithm, you have access to the private keys. For our listeners, if you guys don't know, this whole cryptocurrency thing works by public and private keys. The public key is a string of, I think, 32 characters that you send your funds to, and then the private key is what computers use to access those funds, like to unlock, is like the keys that will unlock access those funds. So right now we can go on a block explorer and see that there is $1 billion in Bitcoin in a specific public key. If you can crack that private key, you have access to the funds. You can move them to another wallet. So that's pretty interesting. I say that Bitcoin is the biggest bounty in the globe to ever exist. It's out there, it's public. If you crack it, it's your money.
Yeah, you'll have access to all the Bitcoin that's out there if you break that algorithm. And what did the developer say about quantum computing?
The developer said there is key points in place that will not allow that to happen, and that it depends on certain parts of the algorithm, and that will be updated over time. Like there is quantum resistant algorithms and quantum resistant implementations that you can do, and even like fork it in a sense. Like they can create a soft fork for the chain. But I'll suggest you to watch our video. It's with developer Aaron. He's a math PhD that's just completely focused on this and works for the Monero Foundation. And yeah, I keep going. At least there's 7,000 tokens, but some more interested ones are Ontology is doing some interesting stuff, and there's a couple other ones. But as more you go down the list, is pure speculation, and you really should do your due diligence work to see if these tokens will actually bring something to the table, to bring something to humanity and solve a problem. And when you go here to the derivatives section, I'm looking at CoinMarketCap for your listeners, and you have the DeFi obviously became very popular, but we need to wait until the dust settles because it's all hype in a sense. And we have to see the true ones that bring a purpose and that have something to the table. I mean, you mentioned Uniswap. I'm not even familiar with what they do. So you see, this space is going super fast. I'm familiar with Compound. Compound is an interesting one, and a lot and Augur. Augur, it's a decentralized oracle. I suggest checking out. And maybe at the end when I'm done, you can talk about Uniswap, which they do something. They do some cool stuff, and then you have Maker and Dai. And here on the storage tokens, you have something cool, which is, and they're still not released. Is Filecoin futures. Filecoin became very popular, and Filecoin is cool because right now you have this problem that we all store our stuff on OneDrive, iCloud, and Apple says that it is a super private company, and they respect your privacy, which it's so ironic because you store your pictures on iCloud, it stores in their servers, and when you're sending those pictures to their servers, the connection is not even encrypted. You're not communicating with the servers on a 128-bit encrypted connection. The connection is completely public, and if someone is eavesdropping that connection, they can get access to your pictures. Some iCloud accounts got hacked. That's why you have now the two-factor authentication. So that was something pretty interesting to notice. Is they're raising privacy concerns, but they don't want to jeopardize, like they don't want to jeopardize on speeds and the quality when you click to see your iCloud pictures. And Filecoin brings and is going to try to disrupt the storage industry, where you no longer need OneDrive or Google Drive. You have this decentralized store where me and you have a terabyte hard drive in our houses, and we just put it online, and someone stores files there, and they just pay you in Filecoin. So I've heard a lot of great things about that project. And another one, just to finish up, is Handshake. Handshake protocol is trying to remove the current problem we have with domains. Across the world, all domains, when you open a domain in China or in Turkmenistan, we was talking about Turkmenistan earlier, you have to ask permission to ICANN. It's a US-based organization based out in California. And that same organization can censor your domain. So they're trying to create a censorship resistance domain protocol. And that's a very interesting project because we'll be in a world where we have unlimited domains and you no longer need to pay all those sort of domain fees, and that's permission to that regulator that's based in the US. And that's something I'm also keeping an eye on, in a sense. Yep.
Oh yeah, man, that was a lot of great projects that you mentioned. Most of them I was familiar with, but that last one, Handshake, I hadn't heard of that. I'm gonna check it out. Um, and they're all solving such different problems, which I think is so cool because it's the same technology. It's something that just got started a few years ago, but it's solving storage and digital cash and all of these other things that people might not even had known were issues, but they're getting solved and they're getting improved on with the same technology that applies to all these different types of issues. So the composability, the just general nature of Bitcoin blockchain, it's changing the world, and I hope everyone is telling everyone that they know to keep an eye out and just continue learning, and hopefully we can help people around the world, with this technology one way or another, solving problems all along the way.
I mean, I'm all about let's the market decide. You have 7,000 cryptocurrencies right now competing with each other, and people are going to go and buy the ones that in the long term there's demand for. Obviously, the price goes up. In the long term, let's see what happens next 10, 20 years. If Bitcoin was useless or had nothing to do, it wouldn't exist anymore. But it's useful to a lot of people, and apparently a lot of people are willing to pay $10,000 for one.
Yeah.
And it's been trading 24/7, and it's on the open market. So it's very interesting to see. This has been so far probably the largest and biggest socio-economic and socio-political experience in the history of humanity that we have seen. And it's only enabled due to technology, to the current technology systems we have in the world, from cell phones to computers that have completely revolutionized the way we live in positive ways and negative ways. So I'll leave that there.
Oh yeah, man. It was a pleasure having you on. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. Everyone check out bittips.net on YouTube, that website, some really great information. Antonio leads the way, and he's educating and informing everyone around the world. Antonio, thank you. Any last words?
No, just thank you. Check out bittips.net, as Robbie said. Anything you guys are curious about or want to learn more, just send me out an email. Or if you want to be on one of our video interviews, just shoot out an email for Antonio at bittips.net. And look forward to talk and meet new people that are interested in crypto.
Awesome, man. It was a pleasure. See you everyone later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the DeFi by Design podcast. Until next time, DeFi Slate Team.